including Tracy Grammer, Foghorn String Band.
Latest news, people of FEMA Director Micah Brown, the government's hurricane with his lieutenant.
What's going on? Yeah. I'm sorry, Tucker, we just had a little bit of an IFB problem. Tucker, the crews that have been here volunteering from out of state have seen a lot of incredible things, of course, the last couple of days. There's all the destruction, things that they just have never seen before. Well, they're also seeing a lot of interesting things as far as the people who are coming out of the woodwork now after 11 days. Remember that they've urged all New Orleans residents to leave the city, and some of them are finally doing that. And today, we caught up with a crew from Passaic, New Jersey, some police officers who were helping to assist one man who, after 11 days, had had enough. They were loading his things into a truck. So when you see the video, you'll see some cartons and things being loaded. Well, what's in these cartons? 96 weapons. The gun owner had 96 weapons, including rifles, revolvers, and a .50 caliber machine gun. The police said they'd never seen anything like it, not only just the hurricane, but just the circumstances under which somebody would load his weapons into a back of a truck. The gun owner, Eugene Furbo, so we talked to him, and he said the reason he stayed was not because of the guns, but rather because he simply wanted to help some of his neighbors get out. He said he spent the last 11 days helping them get out of the water, flagging down police so that people could get hooked up and leave. And then he said that by today, the 11th day, he said there was simply nothing left for him to do. Here he is.
There isn't anybody left back here to help now, so that's about it.
People are dead back there.
Yeah, the bodies started popping up Thursday. I want to say 2 popped up Thursday and 1 popped up Friday.
People you know?
I don't know. They were face down.
They were face down. When we asked Mr. Furbos about his gun collection, he said that he's simply a hunter and he likes to take target practice. But guns were not the only thing, Tucker, that he loaded up today. You see, Mr. Furbos was also the owner of a gigantic python snake. There it is. That is not a load of bananas. It is a snake. The police who had been helping assist him with the gun said that he could essentially handle it himself, and there he told them to move it to a flat part of the truck so the snake would not get splinters. For the police, you know, they thought it was sort of intriguing and perhaps even a little bit amusing, and for them a welcome break from some of the tragic stuff that they have seen over the last couple of days. Tucker?
New Orleans is just such a wonderfully weird city. One of the many reasons I just can't wait till it's rebuilt. We're hearing, David, still conflicting reports about the nature of the evacuation. It seems like, from our vantage anyway, the city of New Orleans has not decided whether this is a forcible evacuation or still a voluntary evacuation. Do you have any clarity on that?
Well, Tucker, one of the things that they're doing is that we still haven't heard any cases where they're actually forcibly removing people, but they are seeming to have a lot of success as far as convincing people to leave. And again, it's for some of the same reasons that we've talked about before. Every one of these sort of convoys that goes out onto the water, either in the boats or the sort of the rolling convoys through the 5 or 6 feet of water, in addition to whether they're highway police from out of state, there are always also some officers that are essentially armed to the teeth. And when you combine that with, usually in each one of these convoys, there's perhaps one New Orleans firefighter, one New Orleans police officer, so that the person that they talk to can see that, hey, this is one of their, essentially their city neighbors who is asking them to leave, and it's being pointed out to people, look, it's just not safe any longer for you to be here. It's time for you to go. And most people are doing that. There are still some pockets of the city, some apartment complexes that are apparently in some really tough neighborhoods that were apparently fairly dry throughout all of this, where they still have had apparently some problems, and they're trying to decide exactly how they're going to get those people out of the city. But for the most part, the police we've been talking with, the firefighters who are going out, even some of the people from out of state who are joining them, they all seem pretty pleased with the idea that most people now, after 11 days, have heard the order to get out, and they're doing so. But again, I suppose it'll be a couple of days before they figure out what to do about those final few hundred or maybe 1,000 who just for whatever reason do not want to leave under any circumstance.
Now, finally, David, the news up here today, as I'm sure you know, has been dominated by the story about Mr. Brown being removed from command of the hurricane, the head of FEMA. Has that percolated down there, had any effect on the relief efforts in New Orleans?
Not really. I mean, I think it's provided a chuckle or two from some of the people that we've spoken with, and particularly, I suppose, some of the New Orleans police did not want to come on camera and say some of the vulgar things about Michael Brown that they were willing to say off camera. But there's a lot of anger in New Orleans. A lot of people who feel that some of the problems that this city is facing right now is a direct result of the federal government being slow to act. And a lot of people personally blame Michael Brown for that. But putting that aside, a lot of people suggest that there's just not enough time, at least here on the ground in New Orleans, for people to try to figure out who ultimately was responsible for the mess. They're so busy trying to figure out where can they send some of these teams, who can collect information, can they now get some of the firefighters from out of state who came here who were initially turned down for fuel. For example, there was a crew from California. They brought their fire trucks in from California. FEMA would not give them fuel because they had not gotten the proper authority to come down here in the first place. They're now trying to go back to some of these teams to say, look, we realize that mistakes were made. How can we help the situation now? They're trying to streamline things. And I think people are so focused on that nobody's paying a lot of attention to who's essentially in charge at the top.
Well, they can start by groveling. Groveling apologies might help. David Schuster, a man who does not need to apologize. It's been terrific having you all week. Hope you have a restful weekend. We'll see you Monday.
Thanks, Tucker. Thank you. You too. Take care.
Thanks. Well, the news, of course, today dominated by the Michael Brown move, the head of FEMA no longer in charge of the disaster of the decade, the hurricane that has ravaged the Gulf Coast. Colorado Congressman Tom Tancredo, a Republican, has been harshly critical of Michael Brown from the very beginning, as well as of local and state officials in Louisiana. He joins us now live from Colorado. Congressman, thanks a lot for coming on. What do you make of Michael Brown's removal today?
Well, before I get into that, can I just say that the segment you just ran about this guy with the 96 guns and the snake, I mean, that's America, man. You
That's
gotta
right.
just love it.
I
You
do.
not?
I love it.
It is terrific.
He's an American defending himself. When the government doesn't step up to defend him, he's defending himself, which is his right.
Exactly.
And, in fact, his duty. Good for him.
And not only that, but helping his neighbors. I mean, that's just a great story. It really is. At any rate, Mr. Brown. Well, I'm, of course, glad that the president has taken the step of having him removed. I hope within the next few hours, maybe before the weekend is over, that he will remove himself entirely, and I can't imagine that he will stay very long. And that's a good thing. Now we have to clear the deck, and that is to say, we have to ask the governor of the state of Louisiana and the mayor of the city of New Orleans to do the same thing, to remove themselves because they are part of the problem.
That is, I think you're absolutely right. Let's go first, before we get to that, get back to the story unfolding on the federal level. How badly does this hurt President Bush?
Oh, I don't know how to quantify it, but I would suggest that on top of a lot of other things that are happening, the president is going to have a very difficult time not only dealing with this issue, but of course with his agenda in the Congress, because he keeps talking about the political capital that he gained during the campaign and the election, but I'm afraid, Tucker, it's all gone. So I'm hoping, you know what I'm hoping? I'm hoping to God that it does not affect the nominations to the Supreme Court, because to me, that's the whole ball game. That's it, buddy.
Yes.
We've got one. This next one coming, it better be a good one, or else we've lost everything.
I think it could affect it. Now, you have been quoted as saying that the state of Louisiana and the city of New Orleans are so corrupt and inept that they shouldn't get federal aid in the wake of Hurricane Katrina, and that the money just ought to go to the feds, and the feds ought to do it all.
Well, with the feds, but with oversight, which we do not now have, with some accountability, which we do not now have. Just pushing now $62 billion into FEMA does not make me feel all that much better. But New Orleans, I mean Louisiana, my observations, of course, have been harshly criticized, but the reality is this. The head of the FBI, the head of that section of the country, the southeast section of the country, here's his quote, and I think this is pretty close to it. It is, the corruption in Louisiana is endemic, epidemic, and permeates every single level of government. That's the FBI's opinion. I certainly don't disagree with it when you consider, what have we got now? A governor, several cabinet members, three successive insurance commissioners, a federal judge, a bunch of state legislators and county commissioners all in jail, and probably others that are going to be following them. And look back at the history. I mean, going back to Huey Long, it's a colorful state, but it is not a place in which I would place a great deal of trust to make sure that the money we are shoving at them gets spent effectively, efficiently, and legally.
It's almost unbelievably inept. The state of Louisiana prevented the Red Cross from bringing aid to the Superdome and the Convention Center as people were dying in both of those buildings. I couldn't agree with you more, but let's assign blame more precisely here. So you've got Mike Brown, still ahead of FEMA, George Bush, the president, Kathleen Blanco, the inept but still governor of the state of Louisiana, and then Ray Nagin, the mayor of New Orleans. Who's most at fault? Rank them for me.
I would say 60% state, governor, 30% the city, and 10% the federal government. I mean, that's the way I would put it, and that's a pretty, I guarantee, a subjective analysis. But the reality is that we have enormous problems now because what the federal government has to do is rely upon local government. People don't understand that. But Tucker, you know, if something happens in my state, in Colorado, the first line of defense, the first people that have to take control are state and local authorities. And then you ask the federal government to come in. And the federal government does what it can do. But the reality is, if you do not have a functioning and legitimate and lawful state and local set of authorities, you are in big trouble trying to get this thing actually done without spending, you know, of the $60 billion we've already appropriated, probably, well, who knows what percentage of that could end up in the wrong hands and never getting to the people that it needs to get to in order to provide the service. It's very, very frightening, my friend. And you know, just the magnitude of it, the amount of money. Tucker, you know, remember, we appropriated $10.5 billion last week, $51 billion yesterday, and that amounts to more money than is used to fund every single department of the federal government except for Department of Defense and Veterans Affairs. Everything else pales in comparison. That just puts this in perspective here. This is very, very scary because there's a lot at risk, Tucker.
Yes, there is. Congressman Tom Tancredo, Colorado, one of the few members of Congress who says what he thinks and doesn't care what you think. And for that, I respect you. Congressman Tancredo, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. It's a pleasure, sir.
Thanks. Still to come on the situation, it seems like so long ago that Hurricane Katrina punished the Gulf Coast. Have officials learned anything in the last 11 days to help them prepare for the next hurricane on the horizon, Ophelia? Plus, the Bush administration pulled FEMA Director Mike Brown off the job today. Was Vice President Cheney the man with the axe? The anatomy of a firing when the situation continues.
We use a lot of paper around here.
We print it,
then copy it,
we file it,
and transfer it. We lose it,
found it, we process it, and turn it into more paper.
And we wonder why our information flow doesn't actually flow.
very complicated.
One company can uncomplicate your paper flow. Lexmark. We've designed smarter ways for the world's biggest businesses to print, move, and manage information. Go to lexmark.com and see how we can help yours uncomplicate.
Sprint Business is reinventing the yes man, turning the yes man into someone who can work from almost anywhere. And now that Sprint and Nextel have come together, you can work in and out of the office more efficiently, the way 96% of the Fortune 1000 already do. So saying yes from just about anywhere with speed and confidence makes me a yes man. I'm a yes man.
With Sprint Business, you can make just about any place a workplace. Yes, you can.
Still ahead, yet another high-profile name is criticizing the federal government's response to Hurricane Katrina. We'll tell you who it is